Well, I'm going to tell you something about the design and the results of the Mood Food Depression Prevention Trial, which was a large part of the Mood Food project. And my name is Mariska Bot, and together with Alessandra Grasso from the VU University, we will focus on two aspects of the results. As Marianne already pointed out, prevention of depression is really important. And in this trial, we tested the effectiveness of two different nutritional strategies to prevent a new episode of major depressive disorder. I will focus on that part, and Alessandra will then continue and focus on the effect of these nutritional strategies, one of them on food consumption and on the environmental impacts. And this was all done in persons that were at high risk for developing depression. So persons who already had overweight and had already some level of depressive symptoms, but not a full-blown depressive disorder. So what did the study look like? We worked with four centers. So participants for our study were recruited from 4 different sites, from 4 different countries. These are listed here. And as I already mentioned, we tested the effect of 2 different nutritional interventions. And these interventions were a multi-nutrient supplement and a food-related behavioral activation therapy. And the participants that were recruited for this study were randomly allocated to each of these intervention combinations. So there were people receiving both the multi-nutrient supplements and also the food-related behavioral activation, but there were also people receiving, just one of these interventions or receiving none. And this is a very efficient design to study effects of nutritional interventions together. Now, how did these multi-nutrient supplements look like? Well, these were the actual jars that were provided to the participants, and the supplements looked a bit like this. They contained omega-3 fatty acids, which was also already mentioned before, and a combination of calcium, selenium, folic acid, and vitamin D3. And these nutrients were selected from literature because there was, at the start of the trial, some evidence that these particular nutrients might be effective in the treatment for depression or maybe for the prevention of depression. Half of the people were randomized to these multi-nutrient supplements. The other half received a placebo. And these really looked identical, but of course did not contain any of these active ingredients. And this was, the supplements were taken for in total of 12 months. Well, the other intervention that we tested were the food-related behavioral activation therapy. And in this therapy, we tried to accomplish a behavioral change, and that was really focused on dietary behavior. So we want to focus on improved dietary intake, improved food preparation, food shopping, eating regular meals, avoid snacking as much as possible. And that kind of things were done. And that was provided in a total of up to 15 individual sessions. So people that received this intervention were invited to one of the research locations and then received a session with a trained psychologist. And after that we had 6 group sessions in which people came together and discussed all these kind of things. And that session, this intervention was also provided for 12 months at the same time that people received the nutrients. There was also a group that did not receive this food-related health behavioral activation, so they received nothing, or they received one of these multi-nutrient or placebo combinations, but there was no active control condition here. One of the aspects that was really promoted in this food-related behavioral activation part was the focus on the Mediterranean dietary pattern. And we had to kind of establish a mood food diet with a lot of components from the Mediterranean diet. like eating a lot of vegetables, eating a lot of fruit, eating a lot of fish, reduce your meat intake, etc., etc. And this diet was promoted during the trial for the ones who received this food-related behavioral activation. I already explained, so people who were part of this study were randomly allocated to one of these intervention groups, and participants were not informed about the type of pills they received. So they were not aware whether they received the supplements or whether they received the placebos. And the same was true for the study assistants and the researchers. We were also not aware which people received supplements and which people received placebo. Of course, for the behavioral intervention, it is more difficult to blind it, so participants knew, of course, which intervention they got. But study assistants and researchers remained blinded, so they were not aware when we were measuring these people or doing analysis which intervention was what. Okay, well this is also very important. Who could participate in the study? So what we did, people who were adults, so between the age of 18 and 75, could enter the study, and also people who had a BMI above 25, because it is known that people who are having overweight are at increased risk for developing depression. The same is true for depressive symptoms, so people were already at a level of having increased depressive symptoms, but not yet a full-blown depressive disorder, because that was our main outcome. We wanted to study whether we could prevent depression, so people were not allowed to have depression at the start of the study. Also, no, people were not allowed to have other psychiatric disorders, and if people were already taking supplements that contained, for instance, omega-3 fatty acids, so nutrients that were part of the intervention, they could also not participate. Well, our most important endpoints of this trial was the development of depression over a period of 1 year. And we also had some secondary endpoints, and these were measured also over the time at 3 and 6 and 12 months during the intervention. They are listed here, so we had depressive symptoms, anxiety symptoms, health-related quality of life, food intake and sustainability, and also some others, but we will not focus on them today. Well, we first recruited persons for the study, then screened them, then we had a baseline interview in which we measured a couple of things. Then they were randomly allocated to each of these interventions, and then they were followed up. And we even did more, because after 24 months we also added another follow-up wave. And that was added later on in this trial. This was a very good moment, because we were able to include more than 1,000 participants for this trial. So we had 1,025 participants included within the time frame. So that is really very good, and I'm really proud of the team that altogether we managed to do this. So it was really great. Well, if you look at exact numbers for this intervention, you see that these were approximately 1/4 was randomly allocated to each group. And here is a bit more about characteristics of the group. So we had 75% of the people in the studies were female. If you look at the different centers that recruited persons, that was also almost equal. So 1/4 came out of each center. The mean age was 64.5 years, and on average people had a BMI of 31 kilogram per square.
So can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
How did the recruitment process take place because of these differences?
I skipped that part for the sake of time, but it's a really good question. We have different ways of recruiting people. So at some points, at some centers, people were recruited by general practitioners. At other points, people were recruited from the general population by just sending a lot of letters out. We had also had contacts with obesity clinics and also tried to find if people were interested to participate in the study that investigated nutritional strategies for to improve mood. So we have different ways, and they're different also between the centers. Yeah, good point. Yeah, of course, our primary outcome was the onset of depression, and how did that look like? Yeah, you can focus on these last bar, and here you can see that about 10% of the study developed depression over time. And that number was lower than we originally anticipated. We also had a large group that had no depression onset, and of course, if you follow people for 1 year, it is also very common that people drop out of the study. So we also had some persons who dropped out and for which we were not certain whether they developed depression. So this was for the total group, but how did the 4 cells look like? So here we can see graphs for each of the 4 intervention combinations. And again, I show here the number of persons who developed a depression over time, over the course of 1 year. And as you already see in this picture, there is not a lot of difference between all these intervention combinations. So we tested this also in statistical models, and what our conclusion was that there is no effect of these 2 nutritional strategies or their combination on the onset of depression. Well, secondarily, we had also some secondary outcomes, like depressive symptoms measured with a questionnaire. And I'm not sure if you can read this very well, but here you see the course of these depressive symptoms over time for the 2 groups. And as you can see, there is not, people try to get down a bit over time. And interestingly, the ones who received a supplement even seem to have slightly higher depressive symptoms over time compared to the ones who received the placebo. So this was quite unexpected. Well, also did the same with anxiety symptoms. We did not find a lot of differences, but for the food-related behavioral activation therapy, after 12 months we saw some differences on anxiety treatment. So the ones who received this food-related behavioral activation had lower anxiety scores over time.
Okay, thank you, Marissa. So my focus is more on the FDA intervention or therapy, and as one of the goals of this therapy or aim to increase or improve dietary intake by shifting the habitual dietary pattern towards a Mediterranean-style diet outlined here in these dietary guidelines. And just to see if the intervention actually was effective in shifting the diet, we looked at the effect of the FDA therapy on food consumption. Now, all participants of the trial, we measured the dietary intake of all participants for 210 food items before the trial began, after 6 months of the trial, and after 12 months. And we categorized food items into 18 food groups to represent the food groups that were advised, either promoted or discouraged by the guidelines. And because we were focused on the FDA intervention, we compared 2 of the groups. So those who either received the FDA intervention and those who didn't receive. So we compared intake between these 2 groups.
So, what's FDA?
Is the food-related behavioral activation. Yeah. So I'm just going to go through how intake changed for just a few of the food groups, because we have a lot. But here you can see on the x-axis is the time. So we start at baseline, so before the trial. In the middle, it's after 6 months, and at the end, it's after 12 months. And here we see vegetables in grams per day. The dotted line is the control group, or those who didn't receive any behavioral intervention, and the red solid line is the FDA group. And you can see at baseline there was maybe a 25 gram per day difference between the 2, and the control group actually was consuming more vegetables. But after 6 months, already the FDA group increased their intake of vegetables and maintained that increase after 12 months. And we also ran statistical models to measure the effect, and overall, relative to the control control group, the FBA group, increased vegetable intake by 19 grams per day. Here you can see the same for fish, but now on the y-axis, it's frequency of fish, so times per week, because the recommendation is eat 3 times of fish per day, or per week. And you can see that the FBA group increased, especially between 6 and the first 6 months. And overall, the effect was an increase of 7.6 grams per day. For meats, this was one food that there was a limit for meat intake, so reduced meat intake to 300 grams per week. And this is 300 grams per week here. So we see that it still remains high, and there was a slight, decrease, but through statistical models, there was no real change in consumption. For the advice for limit intake of processed foods and soft drinks, here we have like sweets and extras, so like French fries or pizza, and we see that it did increase over time relative to the control group, so the solid line relative to the dotted line, and the overall effect was a decrease in 6.8 grams per day. And here's a summary of some of the food groups. So the asterisks represent those that actually changed through the statistical models. And above the 0, this is an increase in intake. So we saw that the intervention group increased the intake of fruit, vegetables, whole grains, fish, and pulses in the grooms, and decreased the intake of sweets and extras. But we didn't see any decrease in meat, for instance, and no change for low-fat dairy or olive oil. So another question I had was, what was the effect of this intervention on the environmental impact of the diet? And a lot of literature suggests that current dietary patterns have a high impact on the environment in terms of the greenhouse gas emissions that contribute to climate change, and land use change contribute to deforestation due to the agricultural process. So we also asked this question and looked at the environmental impact of the diets for both groups before the trial and at 6 months and after 12 months. And just to show you the relative contribution of some food groups for, say, greenhouse gas emissions at baseline. So you can see that the highest contribution is coming from meat, which is all the way on the right. And the first 3 are vegetables, fruits, and legumes. Second, dairy, fish, and meat. So overall, the plant-based foods have a lower contribution compared to the animal-based foods. Another environmental indicator we looked at was land use. And here's the contribution of these food groups to land use. And again, meat is the biggest contributor to land use. And it remains dairies higher, fruits, and then vegetables and fish is the lowest. And lastly, we looked at fossil energy use. And this paints a little different picture, because vegetables is pretty high, relatively high, meat is still the highest, and fish is pretty high. And one reason why vegetables is very high here is the data that we use. Vegetables were more, the majority were grown in greenhouses, which use fossil energy for heating. But so we measured the effects of the FDA trial, and what we saw was overall, after 12 months, there was no change in greenhouse gas emissions and land use of the diet. But we saw that relative to the control group, the diet of the FDA group actually increased in their fossil energy use. Now, you may ask why. Well, when you look here, we saw vegetables, fruits, legumes all increase, and we saw other food groups increase. Sweets and extras were the only food that decreased, but their relative contribution is very small. And meat is very high, but we saw no change in meat intake. So overall, we saw that fossil energy use increased in the FDA group. And that relative increase is about 1.5 liters of petrol oil a month, just to give a better sense of what that means.
Okay, I'll move this up. So to conclude, there was no effect of the two nutritional strategies or their combination on the onset of depression. And I think this has also had to do with the lower cases than expected, but even then the differences between the groups were really small. The second conclusion is that these supplements have no beneficial effect on depressive and anxiety measures compared to placebo. And furthermore, for the FBA, we found only a significant effect for the anxiety symptoms at T12 compared to the FBA, but that was one of the four findings. Yes?
Sorry, I'm distracted.
Oh, no, it's okay, that's fine. Yeah. So, yeah, because this was the main outcome, our conclusion is that these interventions are not indicated for the prevention of depression in this high-risk group of persons with overweight and depressive symptoms. As Alessandra already showed, this food-related behavioral activation led to some favorable changes in dietary intake, and that was according to the dietary guidelines, and also to an increase of fossil energy use, but not on the other environmental measures.
I'm not scratching.
Not scratching.
Can we get back to the slide showing the results for the supplements? Because I think there was a suggestion that there was a tendency for depressive symptoms to be higher in the group that was taking the supplements. I think we need to emphasise that there was no significant difference. So
this difference was significant.
it was significant.
Yeah, it was significant, but it was in the opposite direction. So if we expect to have supplements also finding lower levels of depressive symptoms over time, but it was not the case. Therefore, we had the conclusion that there was no beneficial effect of these supplements. Yeah. But that was, of course, the secondary outcome. So for the primary outcome, we did not find anything.
Quite a bit of a complex conclusion, isn't it? So,
Yeah, we were also surprised by that. Yeah.
no, I mean,
Yeah,
for the people who are not scientists in the room,
The conclusion that you should really not recommend supplements based on these data, that is clear. That is true.
the idea that supplements are bad for your mental health is not proven
No.
because it's not a hypothesis that was being tested. So you need to have confirmation in further experimental studies before you can conclude that supplements were harmful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's why we
what we say.
Yeah, so that's why we concluded the supplement had no beneficial effects, but we don't say they are harmful. And of course, that is also, this is just one study. I mean, you need maybe more evidence to have